which, well, we're just going to start on pop culture, but before we go out of that, I was reading Huckleberry Finn during the week. Did you ever read Huckleberry Finn?
What was it?
Huckleberry Finn by
Huckleberry Finn. Oh
yeah.
God, yeah. Oh.
Mother of God. It's the N-word is on nearly every second. Well, actually, sorry, it's about 3 N-words on each page.
My God.
Now, fair enough. It was written in the context. I think Twain wrote it in 1884.
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't the main character called N-word Jim or something?
Jim, that's right. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And it was just.
Yeah.
But you hear that in the States. I was watching Pulp Fiction, or not Pulp Fiction. What's the one? Django Unchained.
Which one?
Django Unchained.
Oh yeah.
And when
what's your man's name?
when he gets down to the southern farm that's owned by Don Johnson.
Oh yeah.
Instead of using he does use the N word, but he uses the word Jimmy, my Jimmy. And I wonder, is that from Mark Twain? He says, "You can't bringing your Jimmy down here." You know.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe also they're thinking, oh Jesus, do we have to completely, we have to use the N word all the time? It's a bit tiresome,
I suppose, yeah. With
Maybe.
people.
Yeah.
So listen, define to me what pop culture is. You think?
Well, I suppose pop culture is, it's popular culture. It's kind of self-explanatory, and but I mean, what is it? I suppose, and it's kind of I suppose how you use pop culture is it's a way of contextualizing and understanding things. Like, so if you say, it's a great way to demonstrate things. If you were to say, you say, oh, how's the mafia work, or what do they do? What's it? Well, you say, look, have you seen The Godfather? Or is that coming through a bit quiet, by the way? Just like
turn the volume down.
Oh yeah, sorry, in the headphones, yeah.
Turn it if you want.
No, it's actually fine because that's fine. But like, for example, if you're talking about something in like Mafia, Cosa Nostra, there's plenty of like mob movies you might bring up and say, oh yeah, it's like that bit, in The Goodfellas where they bust out the place, or Sopranos and that.
Yeah.
Or indeed, if you're Ted Cruz, you say, nice
bar
bar here,
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm sure his Italian accent isn't too good, is it? Anyway, but and it's also, I think it also is a bit of a touchstone to a different part of your life. So, our age group, you look back, and we were teenagers in the 80s, so there's loads of movies like Back to the Future, Aliens, Trading Places, Beverly Hills Cop, all that stuff, which are, obviously the best movies. It was the best period ever. I mean, and we're always right because Gen X is the smartest generation. Better than our predecessors and way better than our followers.
Do you reckon every generation says that? I think so.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, for example, well, on that point, I mean, something chat with Dad recently. Dad's in his 80s now, so he's he's not actually a boomer, because apparently boomers are from 1945 onwards, the end of the war.
Yeah.
Dad's 42, so he's not either the greatest generation, which I absolutely bloody hate, by the way. I mean, it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, any generation probably would have rose to the challenge if they had a Great Depression and a World War. I mean, their parents did for the First World War. You know what I mean?
I think the boomers had the easiest generation of all, though, to be honest.
They had, funny enough, you're right. I agree.
Yeah.
But they didn't realize that at the time.
No, it was like the explosion in asset value that the boomers have relative to any other, generation, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite an exception in terms of wealth. And I think you're right. I don't think they knew it at the time. Growing up, no one really sort of knew that if you buy loads of houses, you're going to make lots of money. Like, that was a sort of phenomenon that came along quite a long time later.
Yeah.
But the boomers, by their own sense, like, they bought a house for 8,000, which is worth 500,000 now. Obviously, relative to the.
Oh yeah. I mean, they won. You could call it the lottery of purchasing. I mean, I suppose historically, related to the strength of the economy for years in Ireland, a lot of property up until maybe the mid 90s, late 90s was very undervalued. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the fact owning your house is kind of a very core thing to an Irish person, and probably to a British person, whereas it's not, say, for a German or another, because they have a renter culture,
So do you think popular culture now, if you're looking at the generation, so what are we on, not millennials, we're past that now.
Oh, Gen Z, I think?
No, Gen Z was after us. We were X, then
Oh no, Y was after us.
Y, sorry, yeah, Y was after
So
us.
I think, okay, Y or I think millennials. So they're basically people from about 1980 up until.
I think you were 18 when the millennium hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So say 82, 81.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I think 80 is the last year you can claim you're a Gen X.
Yeah.
And no, but sorry, the thing about I hate the greatest generation thing, and then the boomers isn't actually next. There's I think they're called. Could be. I have to check this. They could be like the forgotten generation or something. So that was those people, like my parents' age. You know, people born in the 40s. You know, who are too young to say I don't know, from the late 30s up to 45. There's also a generation there. I think that could. Is it? Yeah.
The forgotten generation.
I think so. Well, maybe not, but there is a name for it anyway. There is a sort of a half generation. Like it's not completely. You're either a greatest generation or a boomer. You can also be a little bit in between. Yeah, but the thing about it, I suppose, is why the boomers. I did think they had it hard is because they were a huge generation and they thought this was a disadvantage. But ultimately, it's turned out to be the greatest advantage because.
What do you mean? Sorry, they thought what?
Well, here's the thing: they're one of the largest generations ever. You know, the baby boom, hence the boomers.
Yeah.
Because
into history.
Well, yeah, I think probably because if it's got to do with birth rates.
Yeah.
And after World War II, people came back, and if they'd survived the war, one of the first things they want to do is get down to the serious business of making babies. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I mean, it's a human thing because if you just survived one of the greatest cataclysms in in human history, and you're alive, and you think, and loads of people are dead, you think, well, okay, let's have kids.
Do you think that's an innate thing inside us as human beings, that to recognize that fact?
I think so. I think it's it's probably not a new phenomenon, shall we say? You know what I mean? I think in times of war or depression or famine or whatever sort of societal ill you might have, the birth rate goes down because people, if they have a choice in it, let's say, so they have availability of birth control or whatever, and can therefore make a choice where they're going to try and get pregnant or not.
But also nutrition levels fall, things like that, which therefore would have the effect on gestation and things like that. That's the fact that you can't carry
to a degree.
Not that you can't carry a baby, but your body's not ready for it.
But even just from a kind of a basic thing, like if the economy is terribly bad, right? Having kids is terribly expensive. So you're thinking like, geez, I can't afford a house now. How the hell am I going to get married? Where we live? I don't want to live with my parents, and certainly not with a young baby. You know what I mean? So definitely I think there's a correlation between economic good times and the birth rate. More or less in Western countries anyway.
Why do you think then Ireland has specifically huge families in times of huge poverty? Going back to the mid 18th century, I suppose it's to do with your children or your workers. I would think the more children. Now there's obviously the Catholic aspect to it of not being able to use protection, which I don't think was available back then.
Oh, you mean so you're going back to like the mid 1800s or the mid 19th century,
which is absolute poverty. And if you read books about the famine or pre-famine life, like it was just literally spuds. That was it. There was no other food, and yet they just had lots and lots of children.
Well, no, true, but I mean, humans are going to ride. That's the thing. That's part of who we are. So the difference then was, well, they had no control over it. There was no birth control. Even if there was, most people were devout Catholics then, and that's a no-no. Certainly no abortion. God, no. So there was no. I mean, women were just basically hostages to their bodies, their menstrual cycle. I mean, there are people who are only children or families with no kids in those areas, but that was not by choice, really. That was just because they weren't able to have more kids or they were infertile. So I suppose when I say the birth rate related to the economic situation or whatever, that would be more for more modern developed countries, as in now. So obviously with healthcare and all, where there's good access to contraception, good women's rights, that kind of thing. So they're not sold off into, what would you call it, arranged marriages instead.
I was watching, I was in Athens, and they were describing the history of families in the time of Athens, so 600 BC or 1000 BC, How many times do you reckon an Athenian woman had to get pregnant in order to have 3 surviving children throughout her whole life?
I'm going to guess 8 times, maybe.
You're 16.
16?
She had to get pregnant 16 times for 3 to live.
So basically, a little more than, or a little less than 1 in 4, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd imagine her life. I'd imagine the average life back then was around 40. I would think for Greece. Maybe could be more.
Yeah.
But it means that literally the second she was able to, nearly, that was it. She was just having children.
Jesus Christ! I mean, when you think about it, yeah. Well, again, that's an example of how, unless you were a nun or didn't get married and remain celibate, you'd no control over these things. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I mean,
So back to the boomer generation.
Oh yeah, sorry.
To the boomers, yeah. So that after the war, obviously there was a huge population explosion because of I suppose there was less war after the war, obviously.
Yeah.
So therefore, there was huge developments in science, I presume, during the war.
Yeah.
That added to medicine and things like that.
Yeah. Well, that actually is true. Yeah.
War usually does that.
It does. In terms of pure the medical thing, trauma surgery is battlefield surgery.
Yeah. Is that where most of it comes from? They just learn it on the battlefield. Is it?
Well, no. I mean, it's just the fact that, say, for example, in burns, treatment of burns, there was a huge advances in the treatment of burns during and after World War II,
right?
Because there was all these aerial battles, And for example, the fuel tank, I think, in a hurricane was right in front of the pilot. So you got hit there, goes up in flames, and you're roasted to a crisp if you're lucky to get out. And no injection seats either, so you had to be able to open the canopy, and usually what they do is they flip the plane upside down so they just fall out, But I mean, it was horrendous, I mean, I mean, in fact, the first British RAF, shall we say, jet fighter in service, which was the Meteor, the first versions of that didn't have an ejection seat. Later ones did, and it was called the meat box as a result. The Meteor was this called, but people jokingly called it the meat box because it was almost impossible to get out of. Hard enough to get out of, say, a Spitfire, but a jet aircraft going even faster, forget it.
You even possibly even if you've got the hood off, you couldn't jump out of a jet aircraft.
Well, it'd be quite difficult, and also depending on the plane, because it's so fast, right? You try and jump out, you get obviously pushed backwards by the wind, and getting some interference there actually. Are your sound levels okay, do you think?
I think the sound levels
okay. That's bizarre. Must be the powers that be. They're trying to silence us.
Oh my God.
Is it? It sounds almost like feedback, but there shouldn't be because we're not using the speaker. Wait, that's the big difference there.
And then that's no volume coming in.
Oh, bugger.
There we go.
There we go. Whatever it was. Oh, I wonder was it actually that sounds a lot clearer. Full stop.
Putin.
You're way better. You're way better.
That means it missed the start.
Well, don't worry. What we can do is, go a bit longer. Let's go to like an hour and 15 minutes. Then you can edit stuff out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this interesting conversation.
Bloody hell.
Well, that's much better, actually.
Yeah, it is.
But
God's sake.
sorry, I was just quickly saying about the Meteor, right? Or these as planes got faster, which of course they did with jet engines, significantly faster. The slipstream, the wind speed going over the plane, meant it was almost impossible to climb out. And if you did, even if you could, you'd probably be swept backwards and impaled on the tail.
Jesus Christ.
So yeah, that's why ejection seats were developed. Yeah,
I think the world record for survival from a height. I remember reading the Guinness Book of Records about this.
Yeah, I think I know
was a Swedish air stewardess, and she fell 35,000 feet.
Yeah.
She was in the tail of the plane.
That's right.
And I don't know, making a cup of tea or something.
Although I have to pull you up there, Phil. You're completely wrong. She was Yugoslavian.
Was she?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Okay, yeah. I remember reading the Guinness Book of Records. Remember that? Speaking of
Speaking of
That's,
pop
by the way,
culture,
not a unique story. There's other cases. There was another young woman at the time. I think she's now in her 70s or 80s, who was I think German possibly, and her parents, they were scientists, and they were living working and living in the Amazon rain jungle somewhere. And the daughter and the mom, she was only about 13, 14 or whatever, at the time, went on a flight which, like they say, it crashed, or some catastrophic failure, so that she also fell an enormous distance. And she was injured, but she was able to kind of get herself quite a few miles until she found, I don't know, some form of civilization to get help.
my God. She just obviously hit trees. My
Yeah.
thing about
Or in World War II,
Yeah.
there's a lot of some bomber crew, in these B-17s or Avro Lancasters, whatever. Some of those guys, some of them actually, I know this one particular guy, the order came to bail out. Plane was going down. Captain says, bail out, bail out, bail out. And if you were a tail gunner, there wasn't enough room in the tail gun turret for you and your parachute. So the parachute, you had to rotate the gun thing so that there's a little door so you can reach back into the end of the fuselage to grab your parachute. That's where it was. And then on and out.
Yep.
Except when this guy did it, the parachute was already on fire.
Oh no, Jesus!
So it was a choice. Well, shit, do I stay here and burn to death or
Jump.
jump?
Yeah.
And he jumped, and he then woke up in a German forest, and it was winter, and he'd hit a load of tree branches the way down, like you mentioned, and he nearly got shot as a spy because the Gestapo or whoever got him, took him into custody, didn't believe him. So what do you mean you're a bomber crew? No, you're not.
Rubbish. Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
You're SAS, or we're
What
gonna.
what was the casualty rate for bomber crews?
Something astonishing.
Was it,
Greater than 50%, I think.
I know the submarines were 2/3.
Yeah.
was the
It
highest.
wasn't far off submarines. It was probably the highest casualty rate on the Allied side, right?
Was the bombers really?
Yeah. That's probably a whole nother discussion. Is a lot of debate these days as to whether the bombing campaign, the strategic bombing campaign, was ultimately a bit of a waste of money. Because actually, in pretty much all wars where they've tried to, like a magic bullet, they will send the Air Force in and will hit these strategic things and it'll force the enemy to surrender. Never works. I mean, unless you use nuclear weapons, but then everyone loses. Do you know what I mean?
Was it not? I think it comes from the strategy from General Sherman in the American Civil War, where he burnt Georgia.
Oh yeah,
sorry, he burnt,
and Atlanta, wasn't it?
Yeah, he basically went through Georgia and just destroyed everything. And the lesson was for the South: never do this again. And he actually said, I think he said that. He said, I just wanted to tell the South, never do this again.
Right.
So the war was over. There was no reason to burn Atlanta. And I think that was the error of the First World War. When it finished, it didn't finish. And
yeah.
And I think it was Foch, the French general, said, this is not the end of the war.
Yeah.
This is a 20-year armistice.
Yeah.
And he knew
he was right, obviously.
Yeah, it would start back up again. I think it was Foch that said that.
Yeah.
So I think the Second World War, it was just to the Japanese and to the Germans.
Yep.
Never do this again.
I know.
Or as a sort of thing to the world. So anyway, back to the boomers.
Yeah, sorry. Boomers. Sorry, you were saying why did so they were a big generation. Therefore, they faced a lot of competition getting into universities, school placement, jobs, and now actually finding enough, shall we say, nursing home places for that generation is very challenging.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of them. Right. And they also coincided with a period in human existence where massive increases in longevity due to public health, medicine, all that stuff,
Yeah.
So, but the flip side of that, which they didn't see at the time, but they do now, is by virtue of their numbers, they have become completely dominant in the world of business and politics, everything. I mean, if you think about we've had boomer U.S. presidents going right back to, I guess Clinton was the first. Because H. Walker book, the Bush the senior, he would have been a great. He was so-called greatest generation. He was a veteran in World War II. Nearly got eaten by sharks. Was lucky not to get eaten by sharks and by starving Japanese. Yeah.
Jesus, really?
Well, what happened was he was a pilot and he flew. What was it?
This is George Bush Senior.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually, just slight aside, W, his son, was also a pilot. He flew for the Texas National Air Guard. Wow. Mind you, that was a way of getting out of the draft of Vietnam.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheeky bastard.
Well, I suppose it's better than Mr. Bone Spurs,
Yeah. I'm a senator's son. Remember that song?
Oh, yeah.
I'm a senator's son.
It's great.
Yeah.
But so the thing was, he was shot down near one of these. I think they were bombing some Japanese island. This is late enough in the war, and the big strategy in the Pacific was island hopping, right, to get close to Japan. But it didn't mean they took on every single island on the way. A lot of them just bypassed because they couldn't do anything. Like, they were impotent, and why fight to the death to take these places? Just, at the end of the war, they got word, guys, we've surrendered. And,
Tokyo was the target.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So apparently he got shot down, and the plane he was in, an Avenger, Grumman Avenger, and it was a 3-crew, I think, plane. So he was the pilot. I think the other two of us, I don't think the other guy survived, but he managed to get into his life raft, and luckily the wind changed, so he stopped being blown in towards the course where there was a Japanese garrison, which apparently after the war came to light, there was actual cannibalism there because they were so desperate for supplies. They were out of everything. Jesus. And they'd no resupply because every single Japanese merchant ship practically was sunk by the US Navy submarines. But he was lucky. He not only did he avoid being washed ashore, there was a US submarine in the area and he picked up, and that was it. Lived to fight another day. Yeah.
It's funny that you never hear stories about US submarines. It's always German and Japanese. In just movies or stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
it's a good point.
During the Second World War.
Yeah.
Did they have many?
Oh yeah, a huge fleet. I was actually in one. There's a really good preserved one in, that hotbed of liberal thought, Mobile, Alabama.
Oh yeah.
It's part
Lordy.
Lordy. We're very liberal here. Yeah. No snowflakes allowed.
Yeah.
But unless you criticize their great leader. But the thing is, they have one of these. I think they were Gato class, GATO, whatever that is. But they were kind of the equivalent of the typical German U-boat or a Japanese. But of course, the Yanks could literally pump them out like sausages, so they had way more of them than the Germans, the Japs ever did.
Did the Japanese and Germans know they had the submarines?
Oh God, yeah. Well, Now the thing was, in the Atlantic, they didn't bother. They didn't need them. It was the Germans had to have the U-boats because
Britain was
between
the
Royal Navy and the US Navy, they ruled the seas and they ruled the air too.
Yeah,
and then. The only role for a submarine, you see, is to interdict your enemy's supplies. But, so there was no German supplies going across the Atlantic, so they didn't need to.
Yeah.
The different story in the Pacific, because of much bigger space, and of course Japan, like Britain, is a maritime nation. It's an island. Depended heavily on imports to keep its war industry going, and also to supply all these disparate, garrisons of troops all over the place. So the U.S. Navy were very active in submarine warfare, and lethally effective, actually.
I was reading about why the Japanese expansion.
Yeah.
In the Pacific, with the exception of China, there was 1931. Was it they went into
something
China?
Like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, which I think is officially when the Second World War started.
Pretty much. Yeah. If you take that point of view, yeah.
But from when Germany had defeated the French and the Dutch, all of French Indochina and all Dutch Indochina
that's
was
right.
now
or
under
the
German, technically under German rule.
Oh well.
Or at
least very friendly
Yes.
to the Germans, and
Yeah.
there by extension, the Japanese.
But then there was oil there and resources there, and the Japanese. It occurred to them that since the French to the Dutch,
Yep.
since the country no longer exists, but it's
Yeah.
been taken over by the Germans, then there's all these resources that are there.
Yeah.
And that's why they went down for all these different places.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And if you want to have a one of the reasons that it's not entirely Japanese fault. No, it's no one has like exclusive fault to starting a war, but one of the things that drove the Japanese to make a move and start the war against the US and the British and the Allies essentially was the US put an oil embargo on them because they were in punishment, if you like, they were disapproving of their actions in China.
Yeah.
So the Japanese realized that, all right, well, God, we need this oil from somewhere, And then, of course, they had their eyes on the Dutch East Indies and all these other places. And as you say, British Malaya, full of rubber and synthetic rubber. I think they had synthetic rubber at that time, but it wasn't, it was mainly natural product. Yeah. So, resources. And so, they needed the resources to supply their empire.
Yeah.
And the other reason, by the way,
what was the expansion? Why did they need resources when their empire was their empire not essentially just were they industrializing their country? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Yes, I think so. I mean, and they were late to the game. Wasn't it the 1880s, or was it Commander Perry, or I can't remember the details. But anyway, the U.S. Navy made a port call, and up to that point, pretty much foreigners not welcome to Japan. It was a closed society. But I think the U.S. Navy kind of said, well, make us and they forced the door open on Japan. Yeah,
I always it's a very sad story, but it's in 1904 when the Russians and the Japanese had a war, and the Russians sent their entire fleet from the Baltic.
Well, I think they'd lost their Pacific fleet already.
Yeah,
like they'd lost, and then they said, right, I know, we'll sail the Baltic Strait around the world.
Around the world.
Yeah, basically.
And it got sunk in 15 minutes.
I think they were just hopeless. Yeah.
Oh my God! Can you imagine like Tsar Alex or was it Nicholas II?
Yeah.
I think he was. Yeah, he was Tsar.
Oh, he would have been. Yeah.
And just imagine that your entire fleet's gone in 15 minutes.
But not only that.
Oh my God!
I mean, we're not. We're talking months. This thing is. They sailed out of the Baltic and went all the way down the coast of Africa, around what is the Cape of Good Hope or whatever, across the Pacific, and it was a monumental task then because. As well, I mean, I wonder even how they did it, because these ships would have been coal-powered.
That's right, yeah.
And one of the reasons the British Empire, if you like, had all these little disparate outposts across the world.
Fuel bunkers.
Yeah, to fuel their navy.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they did it, but I think the history of the Russian Navy is not exactly stellar.
No.
I mean,
I think that's where Japan, its first great victory, wasn't it? Because the Russians thought it'd be an easy win. They were expecting to win that war in 1904.
I think it was the first sort of big victory over European power by non-European power, and it kind of shocked people. I mean, oh my goodness, these little Japanese guys, what the heck?
Yeah.
Actually, until not long before World War II, I mean, again, there was so much latent racism, I suppose. The U.S. war planners and they'd kind of discounted the Japanese Air Force and naval aviation threat, because they were like, but these dudes have all little slit little eyes and they're all short-sighted, and they can't. I mean, maybe they can get a plane off the ground.
They have brains, though. Yeah.
Well, I know, but they literally, crystal clear vision especially in the days before radar was an essential for surviving and being successful as a fighter pilot. So
I think up the morning of Pearl Harbor, they still didn't believe.
Oh yeah,
like as the planes were coming in, they said, "No, that's a fleet coming in from the mainland," or something like that.
Oh, that's right.
Which is just a crazy. First of all, they were coming the wrong way.
Yeah.
Okay. And they had radar at the time. They were keeping quiet, and even on the morning, they were saying no, but except for I don't know how true that movie is.
Which one?
Pearl Harbor. I think, Dan Aykroyd plays the guy who's always warning about
Was he in that? Is that the
he's the guy? He's the guy that plays
Michael Bay one.
Yeah, he's the guy that plays the. He warns the president. Look, I think the Japanese are up to something. He's listening in to the Japanese embassy.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah,
they've broken their code.
Their code, and he kept warning. And then in the other movie, Tor, there's a famous scene where Pearl Harbor's on fire, and the guy who was playing Dan Aykroyd's character, he said to the armorer, "Proof. There's your proof." And he points, and he points outside the window, and there's all the battleships on fire.
Bizarre stuff. For example, not only did they not have fighter planes on alert, and obviously the radar switched on an alert, which they could have, which would have meant that they would have had a tripwire, so it's big, and they get all the other planes off the ground. But not only that, I mean, given that they were, at risk of war, all the planes, the U.S. Army Air Force were all lined up in neat parade rows. I mean, it was almost as if like, here you go, guys, just fly straight line, And what was worse is that this later the same day, or technically the day before, due to the international date line, they attacked the Philippines, which also was a big American presence as well. And
Didn't they attack the Aleutians as well?
Yes. The Aleutians is...
they attacked Dutch Harbor.
Yeah.
Or was that Midway?
No, you're right. Dutch Harbor, I think. Yeah.
But that was about a Midway, I think.
Oh yeah.
That wasn't.
I think it was also more of a diversionary attack. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like the Aleutians are actually part U.S. soil. They're part of the state of Alaska. But So even though you'd had the attack in Pearl Harbor, right? Then I don't know, did they not warn them or they didn't take it seriously? But all the pretty much the entire U.S. Air Force or air strength, shall we say, B-17s, fighters, and all that, were also destroyed on the ground in Manila. Like they were all lined up in parade ground. Instead of saying, "Oh my God, okay, war's on, guys, we got to disperse these planes so that if one airfield gets hit, at least we'll have the other." You know what I mean?
Was that the first technical attack on airfields, though? Oh no, you would have had the German, French, and British experience to go away, wouldn't you?
Yes, you think
and
of
the
World War
Soviet. Would the Soviets been invaded? Yeah, and the Soviets, because the Soviet.
Well, you would have.
Soviet Air Force got destroyed by the Germans.
Yes,
same thing. The planes just sitting there.
Yeah, so I suppose you're right, but I mean, if you go right back to World War One, there probably was. I think there were instances where like the opposition's plane would try and bomb, say, an airfield, but of course, it wasn't much to bomb because most airfields are just basically fields, you know. But you're right. In the beginning of Barbarossa, which predated Pearl Harbor, the Soviet Union
they lost a colossal amount of their planes. Didn't they? Just sitting there.
Yeah, but they had unbelievable intelligence. Would you believe it's a guy called Richard Sorge, or I don't know, Sorge or whatever, who was a German communist, and he was a spy for the communists in the German embassy in Tokyo. Yeah, and he got the correct, as it turned out, intelligence about the date and the intent for Barbarossa. And he sent it up the channels, and Stalin wouldn't hear anything. And in fact, ultimately, I think the guy was sent gulag or shot.
He got the date.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, they should have.
22nd of June, was it? 22nd of June?
Yeah, it was. It's around that time, June 41.
Jesus.
And here's the thing: so they could have been far more prepared, but it was actually. It was almost as if like people think that Stalin didn't want to even mobilize to give Hitler any excuse, as if he needed one, to invade.
I believe, though, on the morning of the attack, there was trains leaving Russia going to Germany with iron ore in it.
You're right up to that, and oil and everything. Yeah.
As the army was going east, the trains were going west.
Trains were going in.
That's crazy. Isn't it?
Not only that, by the way, I mean, the thing about it is, up till that point, believe it or not, Churchill was making provisional plans to try and help the Finns in their fight against the Soviets in the 1940 Winter War. Yeah. So they were seen as the enemy. It was only then, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But like, to show the extent that they actually collaborated with them, well, first of all, they stabbed Poland in the back. I mean, Poland were always going to lose, but they apparently were doing a pretty good job at delaying. The Germans was much tougher fight than they thought.
Right.
But then what happened was, about 2-3 weeks after the German invasion of Poland, the Soviets came in from the east, and they were screwed then. Plus, they massacred a whole bunch of like Polish army officers and intellectuals in the place, the Caton Forest. And that only came to light a long time later, because it came to light, the Germans were saying, look what the Soviets did.
20,000 or something was a huge number,
Huge. But it was all suppressed, you see, in the interests of war effort. But, so
we got sidetracked there.
Yeah. Sorry, yes, as
so
we
back
do.
Back to the boomers, okay?
What?
So
we're still in them.
the boomers were the sons and the daughters of those that survived the Second World War.
Yeah. From, say, so any of those periods, say, born from 45, probably up to about, I think 64 is the official end of it, you know?
Yeah.
And
they came out of the war, and they were so happy to be alive, and life, I'm sure, the culture at the time must have been not quite boring, but kind of, okay, what the hell just happened there for the past 6 years? And so...
Not in the States, don't forget, because they had an absolute, literal economic boom.
Yeah.
Because, you know, their country wasn't devastated by war.
That's right,
I mean, yes, they'd lost a lot of people, but the country itself was intact, you know?
Right, yeah. So they basically, that's where you see these films of the 1950s as The Perfect House, and you know, the housewife and the kids.
And the white picket fences and
all that beautiful stuff.
Everyone has 2 cars, and you know.
Yeah, and then you had the 60s.
Women stay home barefoot and pregnant. I mean, you know, we've kind of lost a lot, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you had the 60s where something happened there where people just said, screw this white picket fence stuff. Let's just go a bit nuts for a bit.
I mean, if only there was a man now who could try and bring that back, you know what I mean?
I know. Yeah. Not a chance. Liberation for everybody, you know.
Nope.
It was such a strange decade, you know. Like it's the world has lost itself, but I suppose it had to after war and all that stuff. Kind of, that was the kids, the boomers, then, or maybe it would have been the kids, the boomers.
Well, we're the kids, the boomers,
Sorry,
mostly, and this whatever this generation born during World War II. You know, like our. You know. But
you were saying you were over in Liverpool and you were in the Cavern.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, Liverpool. I like Liverpool. If I had to live anywhere in the UK, I'd probably choose Liverpool. It just seems like a nice vibe in the place. It's quite small city. The historic centre is really done up very well. Like, you know,
and what was the Cavern like? Is it as it was?
Oh yeah, well that was why we went over. A good friend of mine from college lives there, so it was 4 of us and all. 3 of us went over, and the excuse, if you like, or the reason for going over was on Thursday night. There was a Clash tribute band called London Calling, playing in the Cavern Club, which is, you know, famous for one of the first places the Beatles played.
Is it still the same layout as with the Beatles played?
I think so. Yeah, like it's I couldn't. I'm trying to figure it out. I mean, you would have a better way of doing it with your engineer's hat on, but you know, seemed quite deep down in the ground. Like, you know, the way you go down a set of stairs, landing. It was about 5 times.
So literally like an old cellar for the whole
must have been,
barrels of beers or something like that.
And I think it was actually used as an air raid shelter in World War II. You know, but no, it was good. The acoustics were good. Jesus, it was very loud, and God, it was boiling hot in there. You know, yeah. And of course, I was also saying, my God, this place would have been hell pre, you know, smoking bans. Like, you know, you probably wouldn't even see. You know?
But no wonder George Harrison. I think George Harrison died of lung cancer or something like that.
Oh God, Well, I'm not surprised if he's in these places. Yeah,
that got him at the end.
Did he smoke as well? I think he probably did.
I think so. Yeah, I'm actually not too sure he died, but I think it was something like that. And so it's kind of was there a little bit of vibe that this is where the Beatles started and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, sure. Look, you can't, and you know, pretty much any band in pop culture, as we would say, you know, Stones, Bruce Springsteen, they've all played in the Cavern at some stage.
Have they really?
I think. Well, I mean, and all around the walls is all this memorabilia, like for, you know. Guitars indeed belong to the Stones, belong to Bruce Springsteen. Anyone, I suppose, who any sort of big musical act that goes through Liverpool.
Yeah.
It's kind of a thing. Ooh,
one of my favorite bands, a band called Radiohead, and they started in Oxford.
Yeah.
And we were doing a tour of Oxford, and then there's a place called the Jericho Rooms.
Oh yeah.
And that's where they started. And you walk into the pub, and it's just an ordinary pub, English pub. But however, you see Radiohead things. It's not really flashed out to you, you know.
Yeah.
You start looking around and going, geez, there's Radiohead, Pablo Honey, there's an OK Computer.
Yeah.
And you say, geez, is the owner into Radiohead? But then you can go upstairs, and upstairs is where the first time they ever played live.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's
Yeah, and it's kind of like, well, I'm sure it's not the word as big as the Beatles, but
when did they form? Was it 80s?
Radiohead would have formed. Let's see now. They were literally one of my favorite bands. I'm gonna guess Pablo Honey would have been around 1991.
Okay,
which is their first album.
Right.
And then the bands, but the big one was OK Computer.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've heard of that, but
Yeah.
I'm not that familiar with their stuff. Actually,
It's incredible music. Well,
Yeah.
it's people say Radiohead is kind of depressing. I don't know. There's a great Father Ted where this guy cures himself of depression, and he's sitting at the back of the bus, and he says to the bus driver, or the bus driver says to him, "Do you mind if I put a song on?" You know, and he puts on Radiohead.
Oh no!
And your man just starts to think really bad thoughts.
Oh no!
But I did see a very good thing about Radiohead is that it was a very good line, and it's everyone thinks each Radiohead song is an existential crisis.
Right.
But each Radiohead song is actually a solution to
Oh
an
right.
existential
So it's the crisis, but they also include the
100%,
solution.
Yeah.
Which is very thoughtful and really.
A lot of the kids listen to it now. They do listen to it now, which is sort of. I was chatting to my nephews about the music culture they have now. Sorry. And it's kind of like they listen to a lot of our music.
Yeah.
Especially in the 90s.
Oh really?
Yeah. And it's not, I said to him, look, it's specifically about you or do all your friends. Now he'd be in one of the big universities. And he said no. He said most of the kids listen to the 1990s.
Really?
Well, a few would listen to the 80s, but I'm talking Smiths now and the Cure and stuff like that. But mainly the 1990s. And I said to him, would you not think of creating your own music?
I know,
and
but that's a sign of the times.
Yeah, it's a sign of the times. And again, I was looking at Glastonbury.
Yeah.
And a very good friend of mine, he loves music and he's a genius when it comes to music. You could sit here for hours talking about music. And I said to him, he said to me, the bands are running out.
Sounds like a good guy to having a pub quiz.
Yeah. The bands are running out. Like, all the Glastonbury is now all the old bands. So U2.
Right. Yeah.
There's no real new bands that are going to play it.
Yeah.
And I said to him, in 20, 30 years, do you think Taylor Swift will play it? Or do you think people would go see Taylor Swift?
I don't know. I mean, look, I think she's very talented, actually. She would be one of the better acts out there. But yeah, I mean, she's definitely the exception, not the rule. Because, and it's funny you say up to the 1990s, because wasn't it sort of from the end of the 90s, beginning of the noughties on, you had all these manufactured bands like Take That. Now, again, some of them are pretty good. Certainly the original ones. But overall, it led to a kind of a destruction of the whole sort of the economic model of being a band.
I think, there was the biggest one was there was an internet site where you could download, Napster. Do you remember Napster?
Yeah.
And that heavy metal band.
Oh, yeah.
Metallica.
Yeah.
Their drummer Lars took Napster to court.
Oh, is that? Yeah,
and
really.
He was saying, that look, we're writing the music, we're performing the music, and Napster's just nicking the music.
Yeah. And what are we getting out of it?
Yeah, we're getting nothing. Now, South Park did a good parody of Lars speaking from his huge mansion.
Oh, right.
He's saying, we don't have anything, and he's sitting by a
They're
pool.
taking the bread out of our mouths.
Yeah. And then all the other artists, Britney Spears getting on her private jet and saying, you have to think about me, I've nothing. She's on her private jet.
These Gulf Streams aren't free.
But then Radiohead actually is funny. They had an album called In Rainbows, and they gave it away for nothing. They were the first album. Yeah, first album to say you can either pay for it or you can have it for nothing. Now I paid 15 quid was the price of a CD at the time for it. I just thought it was pretty fair.
I wonder what the percentage was of who did pay for it.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm going to say it was pretty high because it was one of the first to do it. But now it's.
I suppose it also put it up to people to think, oh God, all right, well, I better pay for it here.
But I'd be very interested to see what an artist's income from Spotify is. So say you're just starting off and you have your band there, and say you'd have 100,000 listens.
Yeah,
I
per
wonder,
song or whatever.
Yeah, I wonder how much you get.
Very little, I'd say.
Would you think so?
Yeah, I think I actually think I saw a thing about it. It's only a couple of cents or something, per song play. It's very low. Yeah, which is why the only way to make money now, even for the big, well-established bands, is to tour. That's the live music is the big thing.
That's why they're all sort of coming around again.
Oh yeah,
it's because they have to pay the bills.
You can't make money being a pure recording artist.
Yeah.
Although just a very clever. I mean, I suppose it illustrates how smart, say, Taylor Swift is. There was a thing where.
Okay, there you
anyway.
go.
Yeah.
Okay, so Spotify pays artists approximately 4 cents.
Is that 4 cents or
per 10?
No, it's 4 cents. Yeah,
per
10 streams.
So a radio station, I think, was a lot more than that. I thought.
Wow.
So to put this in perspective, 1,000 streams would earn you about $4. So
and $100,400.
Isn't that amazing?
That's just unbelievable.
Like, imagine the days where you used to sell 100,000 singles.
Yeah.
Which was probably good enough to be number one or something like that. And I'm going to guess he would have got £1 or at least 50 pence.
Presume so.
Yeah.
I mean, what would a single have cost in, say, the 80s? I mean, a couple of pounds.
Yeah.
Right. So at least, even if a quarter of that went to the artist.
Yeah.
Still, a
Huge
lot
money.
more than that.
More than that. And
wow.
It kind of, that's awful, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I did hear that about the and not only that, the thing about Taylor Swift I was going to say was, the way you don't always necessarily own your own songs, so whatever the recording agent that owned them, whatever, sold her portfolio or whatever of her songs, and she's like fed up because she lose control of them,
Yeah.
So what she did was very clever. She re-recorded the whole lot, and even though obviously same songs, but they were a new recording which she had control of. So
without copyright issues.
Was that
without
Well, I think.
How could a judge say no to copyright?
But you see, she's
the artist of both.
She's the artist, whatever way. Apparently, that's what she did. I think,
that's why Prince, I believe, changed his name to Symbol.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I remember he was on some show and he was talking about how the record companies are just taking the cleaners. So, in terms of the income they get, so he actually, as far as I know, he issued an album and he wasn't allowed to use the name Prince.
Really?
Yeah, because it was owned by the record label. So he issued.
I see.
So he changed his name to Symbol.
And that's very clever.
And that was it. And so the record company, I suppose, couldn't do anything because it's like, who's this guy? Symbol.
Symbol. I suppose. Yeah. Oh no, completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's another victim of the opioid crisis, I believe, as well.
Is he still?
Yeah,
he's died, isn't he?
Oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
He was one of the many celebrities died in 2016. Do you remember there was a whole cull of celebrities? But I think he'd had some sort of injury and he was put on pain medication, but it was this really bloody, addictive stuff. And I think it caused his death,
Was that the same stuff that killed Michael Jackson?
No, that was a really odd thing. He was a really chronic insomniac, apparently. So, and of course, because he's wealthy and he basically was getting an injection every night of this stuff called propofol. It actually looks milky white, this drug, and what it is, it's an induction agent. So if you've ever had an operation, the way if you ever put a general anesthetic, the anaesthetist will say, right, okay, count backwards from 10 and you're gone. but what he's doing is he's pushing the plunger of this stuff, propofol, in. And then you see his job really starts, because throughout the operation, he's got to keep an eye on your oxygen levels, your breathing, everything. Because if you gave this stuff and then just went off and had a cup of tea, someone could suddenly start breathing or whatever. You know what I mean?
So you had to do the same, like for anyone getting an operation.
Oh yeah. I mean, this stuff is, shall we say, very safe and in use for decades, probably even longer. But on condition that it's given by qualified anesthetist or anesthesiologist, specialists in the area, who then have like a massive amount of equipment to monitor all your vitals and make sure that you have enough oxygen, that you're breathing, all that stuff throughout an operation. That's their job, to keep you alive. And then obviously they give you, they bring you out of it. I think again, apologies to any of my anesthesiologist friends, but yeah, it's they wake you up then in the recovery, But yeah, Jackson was being given this stuff by his own a physician that he employed, right, who wasn't an anesthesiologist. I think he was basically probably like me, like a GP or a family doctor or whatever. Yeah. But he also had a lot of financial difficulties, and basically he should have known better. I mean, it was I think he did get done with manslaughter or whatever, because like crazy risks. He not only did he put him to sleep with this stuff in a sort of household setting, he then apparently went next to the room next door and had a cup of coffee and watching TV instead of being. You have to be right there all the time. It's so crazy. So yeah, that's what killed him. Yeah.
And then with Prince, it was he said his final show April 14th, while flying back to Twin Cities, he became unresponsive and his
Oh yeah, I see that. You see naloxone. So he was given naloxone, right? Okay. And if you see someone was given, naloxone, it means that, well, at the very least, an opiate overdose is suspected, because naloxone will reverse the effects of opioids. Wow.
And was it those pills, the Purdue family, that stuff?
Yeah, all that stuff. I think it could have been Percocet, or it was basically an oral opiate meds. Like they weren't like a pack of Skag or heroin or whatever off the back of a dirty spoon. No, these were pharmaceutical products. But he was just, but that's the whole Purdue family, the opioid crisis. I mean, that's
how did the FDA let that go through?
Well, because they're useless, frankly.
Was it actually money? Was it?
Well,
or bribes?
Well, not even so much like bribes, but the history. If you're working the FDA, a senior person in the FDA, and you give a drug company a hard time, try to say, look, as they should do, say, listen, guys, come on, opiates are they're only for severe pain or like pain related to cancer, i.e. sort of palliative care, because they're so addictive. And the Purdue crowd in particular, or the Sackler family, they came up with this thing with, we've got this kind of long-acting opioid, and therefore it's not addictive, and you can use it for anything really, and all bollocks, of course. And the reason that they weren't stopped, that the FDA didn't say, hey, hold on, come on, no, we can't, this is ridiculous, is because basically most FDA guys, when they leave the FDA, get hired for big money with these pharma companies. So they're totally compromised. That they're not going to, piss off the people who he'd be looking a job for.
It could be quite similar to the rating agencies in finance.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
like Moody's and all that.
Yeah, they go work for the big banks, allegedly. I'd say that. Yeah, which we have to say.
But even if it wasn't bribery, if they consistently gave bad, that was in that Big Short movie.
That's right. Yeah.
Another pop culture phenomenon.
Yeah.
Where they said, look, if we don't, the character, she said, look, if we don't give the ratings they want, they'll just go down the road. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we either.
What do you think the culture is these days? Is the culture your phone, or is that too simple as a culture thing?
Well, the phone, we're all addicted to screen. Most of us are addicted to screens.
I think they have to change the word phone to something else. It's
electronic heroin, perhaps.
Well, dopamine hit, right? I was getting the train in from a friend's house in Kilcool, and it's about a 48 minute train journey in on one of the most beautiful railway lines in the world.
Everyone's looking at the phone.
And the sun was coming up, beautiful sea views, past mountains, and everybody on their phone. And
I probably would have been too, to be honest.
Yeah, look. I can't say I'm innocent. I haven't done Facebook. Thank God. I've never done
garbage anyway.
I've never done Twitter.
Yeah.
I
do Instagram, but only for my hobby. You know, like it's nothing personal. It's all hobby-related stuff. Yeah.
Do you think as a doctor that's going to have effect on the younger generations?
Oh, it already is.
It is?
I think so. I mean, here's the thing. I remember your phone number when you were a kid, and you probably remember mine. And we've all these. I can barely remember my wife's number. Yeah. I do, but only because I made a conscious effort to learn it, thinking, I should know it off. But otherwise, not. Who learns numbers anymore? I mean,
just know my own number. That's it.
Well, yeah, because
if I actually lost my phone, I wouldn't know who to phone to tell them I lost my phone.
Like, if you lost your phone or your thing was wiped, you'd be like, geez, what am I going to do? Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely one thing, and then so therefore it's also having an effect on memory, because if you think about it, like that we were saying, your man Prince now, so you don't have to kind of retain these facts because you just look at your phone, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's the big thing with the Chat GPT as well. This AI is that you've got most students in university now. It's probably become pointless to ask them to write essays or whatever, because they just go on to Chat GPT, write me an essay about cell biology or whatever, At
least back in our day when we had to plagiarize, we had to go find the book.
Yeah, bloody right.
And we had to read the book.
Yeah.
And we say,
just get some AI nonsense.
Yeah, we were hours in libraries looking for the book.
Absolutely.
That we could
photocopy.
Yeah. Jesus.
With the Xerox machine.
And so it's kind of, I don't know, do you think we're going to learn more from having AI or less? The fact that we can get all the information. Like, going back to the Guinness Book of Records, which we might have talked about previously, but the origin of that was that it was to settle arguments in pubs.
Oh, yes, of course.
So you may be sitting there, I don't know when they started to say,
smashing pint glasses in her faces and stuff.
And saying, no.
Hold on, pick that glass out of your face and let's get this book off the shelf. Yeah, I know, And
it was kind of like the world's fastest man. Oh, and I'd say, he did 100 meters in 6 hours. And you go, no, it's about 12 seconds or something.
I know, yeah.
But then Guinness came up with the idea to publish a book with all the stats.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And gave it to all the pubs.
And was it okay? Because that's probably Guinness, give it to pubs.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And so the book was on the shelf, so you could settle the arguments.
Wow.
By going to the Guinness Book of Records. Jeez. I'd say. And now I'm sure it was tongue in cheek. Were people having conversations about what the biggest animal in the world is, or the longest snake or something.
And of course, like, the book's only updated once a year, so a lot of facts could be out of date.
But now we have an infinite amount of Guinness Book of Records on the internet.
Yeah.
And like, even I was having a conversation in a pub the other day, and we were talking about the invasion of Constantinople in, I thought it was 1463, but it was actually 1452, or was it 1453?
Okay. Jeez, that's a real schoolboy error.
I know. But it was so there was the information.
Everyone knows that, for God's
sake.
It's
so obvious. And but there was the information on Wikipedia. Now I'm not a huge do I trust Wikipedia? I think for non-essential stuff.
Or I would say I wouldn't trust it on most sort of political partisan stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Because
I think for science it's good, because there's no point in lying about Newton's laws.
Nothing to be gained, I suppose.
There's nothing to be gained with that. I don't think there's anything gained to history.
Well, maybe if you're Russians and you want to whitewash some of your past, you
could do that.
Who knows? Well, I suppose you know.
Well, does that mean, like, I even saw an ad on Irish television of this girl sitting down with this elderly woman?
Yeah.
and they were reading a headline, and it's a government ad to try and explain what false media is.
Oh, right, yeah.
And the old woman thought the headline was true. And then the younger person says, now look at the date on that, and the date was April the 1st.
Yeah,
And
like April Fool's,
the old woman went, oh my God. He said, so it was a message, don't believe everything that you see.
Well, I mean, this is the problem. I mean, there's many, you don't know where to turn, because traditional media, shall we say, particularly TV, is hopelessly partisan. Or, you know, the way apparently the majority of Russian adults, for example, get their news from the TV.
Yeah.
And
do you think that, you know,
they're all state controlled essentially, you know?
Well, also, I think it's going to develop into those that have the knowledge and those that don't. And I think that's it's going back. It's literally a step back in time.
Oh, you mean, yeah.
That
well,
those, you know, you have
it's ongoing
the mob.
concentration of wealth at the top, you know?
Yeah, but also, like, I've had many conversations with people.
I mean, I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords.
Yes, exactly. and overlords.
Yeah.
But I've had conversations with people, and I clearly know they don't know what they're talking about.
They've just, read it on some...
But they believe it, which is...
Yeah.
So I completely understand why they think. I don't get angry.
Yeah.
I just try and explain to them. And then there's things that I say where I'm wrong. And then some
I
people
don't get angry at them if they're prepared to listen to a different point of view. If, say, you know, someone's talking out their arse about, you know, gun control in the States or whatever, and, you know...
Says the two guys who've been to the NRA museum.
Oh, yeah. Well, come on now. You know, we had to take a taste of freedom, you know?
Exactly. Do you remember that museum, too?
Oh, yeah. Sure, I still have... I was cleaning out a drawer the other day, and I found the pin. We had the pin.
No way.
Yeah.
Just to say, we were passed by, I think it's West Virginia or Virginia.
No, well, it's in the suburbs of Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah.
And then we just by chance, didn't we? We saw it off the freeway.
But I said, I'll go in as long as we don't have to pay in.
Yeah.
I said, there was no way I was paying $10 or $20 to go in to the NRA museum.
Kids, you know.
No. And we were in a car park, and this family got out of their pickup truck. Remember that?
One of these ridiculous,
with the
massive,
mum and dad,
yeah,
armed to the hilt.
Really? Oh God!
The kids had nothing, thank God.
Packing heat.
Yeah, and you're going, and they were like, yeah, you know. I was okay, fair enough, you know.
It's an incredible. I give you an example. I was in Florida about 2 years ago with the family, if you like. And one particular day, Liz and the kids went to a water park, and I was like, I'd sooner iron my sack, you know what I mean? I was not in favour of going there. But
Go
obviously...
on the big slides, no?
No, well, I was pretty heavy. I mean, I'm a big guy, but pretty heavy at the time.
Right.
And no one could guarantee to me that a Japanese whaling trawler wouldn't go by. You know.
Yeah.
There she blows.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But anyway, so it's very long. It just happened to decide I dropped them off that morning, and I had the rent car to myself, and I said, right, it was an hour and a half drive from Orlando to Daytona Beach, so I've never been there. So we went up there, and on the way up, initially I like podcasts, but then I was realizing, you get a very meager amount of data in the States off Vodafone, I think. It was eating my data, so I'll just listen to some local news.
Is it expensive to get extra today?
Yeah, crazy. Although my most recent trip is, and in fact, I have an iPhone 16, the last year's one.
Yeah.
They don't even have a physical SIM card in them anymore. It's called an eSIM.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, and you can just simply pay money for an eSIM. You can use your phone like home. But so anyway, I was flicking around the channels, and I was like, oh, Fox Radio or whatever.
Yeah,
so I said,
Fox,
okay.
Clear, and...
Listen, Fair and Balanced.
Fair and Balanced. I love it.
Yeah. The fairest racists in the world, you know.
Yes, and balanced, perfectly balanced.
Oh, yeah. But what had happened was, as pretty much happens all the time in the States, there was a particularly egregious mass shooting at a school or something, or some dreadful thing,
Who does
thoughts
that?
of-
Shoot up a school. Jesus
Well,
Christ.
it's a combination. Well, that's the thing. So there was obviously a talking around a table, group talking, and some strident woman, I'd say probably 50s or 60s, whatever, is kind of going on about like, well, the goddamn Democrats will keep saying it's due to the guns. It's due to the guns. It's not due to the guns. It's due to mental health. And of course, the answer to that is, well, why don't you fund the mental health treatment then? You don't do that either, you know. But it's plainly.
Last question though, under Obama, didn't the Democrats control everything?
Initially, at the start of his first term, they did, but not for the whole of his term. So for the latter half.
Do you really think either party wants to get rid of guns? Because haven't they had opportunities really to do it, but they haven't. Yeah,
and in fact, I know. I mean, it's just I'm not being, if you like, racist, but you remember, the Sandy Hook thing in about 2012. Obama was in charge then, and there was huge groundswell. Look, we got to do something with these guns, and of course they didn't, because the gun lobby said no way. Don't touch guns.
Do you know there was a massive massacre in Australia called
the Port Sandy
Arthur.
Hook, a bunch of young, wealthy, white, blonde kids. They can't get gun control on the basis of killing them. Forget some, church in a black area or a gay club somewhere. They don't give a shit,
The Port Arthur massacre in Australia. That it was nearly the same thing. It was after the massacre. That the Aussies want to ban guns, except for farmers, I believe, to shoot kangaroos and
I think in particular handguns.
And again, it was a similar argument. This is not going to work. It never, you're going, it's a mad thing to do. It's not going to work.
Or they say the only people with guns will be the criminals.
But the Aussie government did it.
Yeah,
and there hasn't been a mass shooting in Australia since.
That's right.
So I think. Now, I understand...
What's the one in England, the Hungerford massacre?
Oh,
I think that's led to a similar thing. Or the Dunblane thing as well.
Yeah.
And these were pretty much one-offs.
The one thing I do understand about the philosophy of gun ownership in the States, and it's too difficult for people...
Second Amendment,
Yeah, but it's not easy for people who weren't brought up in generations of the USA to understand. And I could be wrong about this, but... When you were going west in the 1850s and stuff, there was no law. There was the army who weren't always there.
Well, almost never there. I mean, it's a huge space,
And the church was the local place where everyone...
Center of the community?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you had no protection. There was no police. There was no army. So...
Or if there were police, you might have just a sheriff or something.
Sheriff, Now... I do understand that it comes from the Constitution against, it's the
Although in my opinion, and many others,
to fight,
taken out of context.
to fight the king, or...
I think the actual text goes, the right to bear and use arms in the context of a regulated militia.
Yes.
Not just every 18-year-old walking around intimidating people with an AR-15 in his back.
So I do understand... in the psychology of people in the States, handed down from generation to generation from the 1840s.
I mean, it's a cultural thing,
it's so I do get that it's like you're taking my gun away from me, but my great granddaddy came out here on a horse and cart, and all he had was his gun to protect his wife and kids. So I do get it like that, but I wonder. I don't know if the Australians had the same upbringing, or not upbringing, the same development.
They definitely don't. You're right. It's kind of somewhat unique. Now, there are other countries in the world with similarly high levels of gun ownership. I think even Switzerland has very high.
Is the highest in the world is Switzerland?
I think so. But that's because everyone was a reservist in the army and had a gun at home.
You have to have a gun at home because... for fear of invasion.
Yeah, the Ruskies are coming.
Yeah.
Or the Krauts.
And actually, was Switzerland ever invaded as a matter of
I'd say you'd have to go back to the Middle Ages, and it was like the Holy Roman Empire and all that. Maybe. But I don't think it was a state of its own then. It was kind of one of these micro-states within these big mishmashes, you know what I mean?
Okay, estimated number of civilian guns
per capita by country. Okay.
now. Would the Switzerland be civilian though?
Well, I suppose you could argue because you have to keep your gun at home, I believe. So the idea is you could. There it is, 19th. Look.
19th.
Yeah, not as high as we thought, perhaps. Yeah.
The Kiwis, look at that.
Yeah.
So,
Falkland Islands. But look at that. The States is 120. There's more firearms than there are people in the States, right?
That is crazy.
Yeah. Whereas the Falklands is second, but it's like 62 per 100 as opposed to 120 per 100.
yeah,
Do you know what's very interesting is that
Is it
every
Vasquez?
time, a Democrat gets in, like when Obama got in or whatever, there's great hysteria. Oh my God, they're going to take my guns. So there's a massive uptick in gun sales. and the thing is, at most, even people advocates of gun control in the States aren't sort of, from what I can see, they're not saying things like, yeah, we're going to ban all the guns and everyone's going to have to hand in their handguns and blah, blah, blah. No, they're literally just saying, could we just please have, like, in the same way you need to have a driver's license to drive a car, could we have a firearms license? You know what I mean? But they don't even want that,
Well, they'll say that 30-something thousand people are killed by guns a year and 50,000 people are killed by cars.
Yep.
So let's get rid of cars.
Well,
it's
they
just such a
will, but
ridiculous
the difference
argument,
is if you look at other countries with cars, but they don't have guns, and also, by the way, I think, I may be wrong about this, but I heard that around half these gun deaths in the States are suicides.
Yeah, I think
if
you own a gun or if you have a gun in your house, statistically, now obviously because it's in your house, but statistically the likelihood of someone getting killed with that gun
it's probably yourself.
It's good. Just goes through the roof.
Now, obviously, obviously the gun is there, so therefore it's like a
You have the opportunity. It's there.
Yeah, but it's now there's Ireland. Ireland's above Israel. What
is
the
it? So, but
Israel
pretty low.
is 6.7.
But I wonder, as you correctly said, do guns in the army and the police count? Because obviously, Israel is a very heavily militarized country in terms of...
If you were in the army...
or if you're an army reservist.
If you bring that gun home, does that...
I mean, in practical terms, sure, because you have access and control of the gun. Yeah. But maybe it doesn't count towards civilian gun ownership because I suppose you're not the owner. It's belonged to the state, the army, police,
Yeah. My dad, back in the 70s, had a shotgun with the house we used to live in. And the guards came around, and hey, you had to register it every year with the guards.
Yeah.
But he used to shoot magpies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He hated magpies. God. he used to
those feathery
he used to go to the window at 6 a.m. and he'd just wait and he'd wait. And then one would land and two would, and I'd be in bed. Jesus Christ!
And you go boom
next
boom.
to the window. No, two of them crack.
Yeah.
Bam bam. And
the two barrels. Boom boom.
And Jesus, I felt, I was scared the shit of me. And then there'd be 6 magpies there, and he says, "Got him." Yeah. But he was warned in the 1970s that the IRA.
Forget Dirty Harry, Dirty John Duffy.
That's right.
Yeah.
The IRA were targeting people who had guns.
So they knew good place to break into the big gun.
Yes.
There. Yeah.
So they would nearly break in at gunpoint to steal a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the guards warned him about it, and like it was a very country area we lived in.
Yeah.
But the guards warned him about
nowhere, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Miles from civilization.
Yeah. And said
at least a day's walk.
Yeah. At least a day's walk to town to get the messages.
The messages. There's no messages in the press.
Get the messages.
You wouldn't go into town and get me some minerals.
A good tin of minerals.
Yeah.
So, but he was warned like that. So,
yeah.
But I'm stunned that Israel is down there at 108 and we're 107.
Yeah, but the thing is, I guess it must mean that to be civilian, like say you're a private individual in Israel and you want to carry a gun, it's probably no way, lads.
I wonder, are they allowed to bring their guns home with them, or do you leave it on base, so to speak? Or?
Well, I mean, I guess so. You know, because they're reservists. They're technically still part of the armed forces, and it's not much.
If you look at the 6-Day War, there was no warning.
Oh yeah.
So you have
the 6-Day War, there was no warning the other way. But
Yes.
you're thinking of Yom Kippur,
Yom
73.
Kippur, 73.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That the fair play to the old. You know, the Arab armies probably fairly get a bad rap because success ain't their thing.
No.
But kudos to the Egyptian army. They gave them a good fight and used some very innovative techniques.
No, they had to, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
Okay, look, we're coming to the end of the hour there.
Jeez, I could go on for hours.
We could go on for hours.
Yeah.
But